It's your girl Regina from Anime While Black, and we're back with another episode with the one and only Chris Fury from Blerd's EyeView. Yes, you guys, we're doing a crossover episode, and we're just gonna chop it up, and you guys are gonna just get to sit back, follow us along on this little nerdy journey as we just talk about, your origin story and just the importance of representation, what it's like to be a Blerd, this community, what inspired you, just so many things. So we're gonna you guys grab some popcorn, grab some snacks, sit back and get ready because this is interesting. I'm so excited. So thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on today.
One, thank you. I do love enjoying it. It feels good being on the other side of the mic. There's not much preparation I have to do. I'm like, oh no, ask away. I'm ready. But I do enjoy doing these collabs with other people of color that's in this field of blurredom and entertainment. So I get a kick out of it because, as we say, there is room at the table for all of us.
Yes, all the time. And I feel like I really love that about us and about our community. And I want to see that more because it feels like sometimes some people have that like anxiety or insecurity of like, oh, I got to do this better or this. And it's just like, we can all eat, it's a family
Mm,
reunion. Like, we're all
yeah,
going to bring a potluck, somebody bring a
yeah.
plate. And what I bring
Like,
to the table is
cause
different
of
from what
Cheryl,
you
you
bring.
just bring the pop because we know what you did the last time and it was a little dry, so
Yes, we know who gets to make the mac and cheese, who
right.
and we know who we
And
putting on the grill.
no experiments, please. Thank you very much. So
Right?
yeah.
That you know what? That would be a funny episode, like a family reunion episode of Blerd podcasters, and let like people say who's bringing the mac and cheese, who we putting on the grill, just based on personalities. Me and you should
Mhm.
like really
Yeah.
talk about that some more and
Yeah,
start
yeah.
putting our picks together.
I
Oh
like that
yeah.
idea. That's fun.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. I would love to like collab on that with you towards the summertime, like just looking at the entire Blerd community, POC community, and being like, who do we want to bring? Who do we trust to
I will
bring
say
that?
this, and I'm gonna shout him out because he's people, but they stay in Philly. Uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, King Kurt of Head Nerds in Charge.
Yes.
Uh, I already know Kurt. You're bringing the liquor, so
We know where he gonna drag the cooler. Who got ice? There's some
I
people.
I seen his food setups too now. So you ain't gonna lose either way. So
Right? That's a win-win, especially that. Yeah, that one uncle, like that's always gonna be a good time. So, I mean, like, let's talk about your origin story about getting into like creating Blerd's Eye View and just what even inspired you to do that.
I've always been exposed and
Mhm.
engulfed in the world of just everything nerd, right? Like comics, cartoons, anime when I got a little older, which by the way, some people don't realize when they actually were exposed to anime. But if you were a G1 Transformers fan,
Right.
you kind of you were already exposed. If you watched Robotech or anything like that, you were already exposed and just didn't realize it.
I didn't even think about Transformers.
Yeah, because those original intros, they were like those intros were fire, right? So then you see the actual show, you be like, wait, what happened to the anime? You don't think about it as a kid, but as you get older, you're like, what happened to the animation from the intro to the show? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But um always been involved with
Mhm.
nerd culture. Part of my moral compass comes from that, not just my parents. It just comes from, seeing these characters try to do the right thing or
Nice.
deal with some of the things that they deal with. And it just enveloped in me. It stayed on me, So I love all this nerd stuff.
Yeah.
And I know starting Blerd's Eye View, which was it's just going on 4 years now. It's going on 4 years old in April.
Oh wow.
Um, I went to Ohio Media School in the year of 2019.
Okay.
And this is a local vocational school that teaches like the media
Hmm.
side of things, newscasting and all that to sports
Yeah.
talk, their podcasting. And that's where I found out as I got older, of course, I'm grown adult, but I skipped a couple years. It's just like Jesus. They're like, there's some years in
Some parts
between.
in between, right? You don't go from 12 to 33.
Right, right. So, but yeah, that's where I learned, I was there and people were saying, man, do you sing? And I'm like, no, I don't sing, and they're like, well, what do and it became a thing where um they wanted me to voice their projects, like then they have a day called Media Day where the students of that time, they'll run the station like it's an actual radio station.
Right.
So they'll have music lineups, they'll have bumpers, they'll have commercials. So I ended up being like the voice of the commercials, the
You do have a
bumpers.
voice, a radio voice, a
Yeah, so
broadcasting voice.
that's what I would always get. So, I said, okay, I'll work with it. And a buddy of mine who I, brought in on the Blerd's EyeView when I first started, he wrote a commercial and he looked straight at me. He was like, and I want Chris to voice it, So I'm like, all right, and as a matter of fact, one of the commercials gets played during the show, which
Hmm.
is chocolate salty balls. And so he wrote that and I did the voice work for it and just having fun with it. And then of course the world shut down.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I want to take something that I like talking about
Yes.
and really develop it into something that I can do.
Hmm.
Because prior to me going to OMS, we have a local comic book store here in Cleveland called Carol and John's.
Hmm.
And prior to the pandemic, uh, on May 4th or May 4th weekend, which is considered Free Comic Book Day, Star Wars Day,
Right.
and they would have what they call like the midnight party.
Hmm.
So, store will close at 7 p.m., which is its normal time. And then it will open back up at 8. Well, at 8 o'clock, from 8 to midnight, sometimes a little later, here in this plaza, it would, people would come in and they would get do raffles for local artists who drew for cover books, just blank cover books, and they drew like whatever the theme was.
Hmm.
There was a local brewery here in Cleveland and they would create 2 craft beers
Hmm.
that was specifically for this event, so it could be like one, like the year, speaking of which, it's 6 years since Black Panther came out.
Hmm.
um one year the theme was one of the themes was, Black Panther. And one of the ales they came out with was Wakanda Wheat Ale.
Mm.
And by the way, that was a damn good beer, actually. And the label was created by a local artist and everything, so they
That's
have these
dope.
things. Yeah, and it was fun, and I used to hang out, and I still do, hang out with a couple friends of mine, and we would just go get something for dinner, hang out, go to the store, get raffles, probably win one of the posters. Sometimes a lot of times you would either win the cover books
Hmm.
that one of the artists did, or you would win one of the graphic novels that they had that was on like backward, like that was on surplus or whatever,
Hmm.
50% off on items. They had a certain percentage off on items, and they would, and they still do it, where you could bring in a canned good, and every canned good got you a free ticket for the raffle. Well, the canned good went to the American Food Foundation,
Yeah.
basically. So, so they help feed the homeless or the people who
Hmm.
are struggling.
Hmm.
So he worked with the community a lot.
Hmm.
So it was that type of thing. So, um, but then the pandemic happened. And then after, what was it, 2+ years, they never did the midnight showing again. They found another way. They still in business. They found another way to do things, but they just keep it during the day now.
Hmm.
And I said, I miss talking about these conversations about whatever the latest movie was, the latest show, because every time May 4th came around, something came out.
Right.
A movie dropped, a television show had dropped. Most of the time it was both. So by the time Friday came around, people had probably already seen the show. They probably already seen the movie. Now they're talking about it. So we would
Miss
sit
the
there.
community.
Yeah, so we would hang out, talk about it, have dinner, and it was just a good time. And I said, even when I went to OMS and we did a segment where, all the students had to come up with they had to create a news segment. And I did an entertainment news segment.
Mm.
And it was me and a young lady. and she had we played off each other. We were like the reporters of the segment, and we talked about things. And before I knew it, because I think we had 10 minutes apiece, and we like in duo, it was like teams. It was like 10 minutes apiece. And by the time the 10 minutes was up, and I'm looking at all the other students in the class and looking at the instructors, and they're looking at us and they're just like, have y'all done this before? And like, and we
Right? The
were like,
cohesiveness.
yeah. And it was just like the way she's asking the questions and vice versa, when I'm asking her the questions and we're answering the questions and we're talking about the stuff. And he was like, yeah. And they were like, Chris, you really know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I have a passion for it. Anime, comics, movies, TV shows, cartoons, wrestling. It's all there, and
And it's all
so
intersectional too. Like if you
yeah,
like one, you generally kind of like the other. So you just became that hemisphere for it in the
right.
community, like all those things.
Yeah. And see, in between, that's when I met one of my mentors, Tommy D, who runs Circle of Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined up with his team. And a lot of his content is Star Wars related,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always something funny and something crazy or whatever. And that's where I got the name Chris Fury.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me, he said, "You know why I'm giving you that name?" And I said, "I have a guess." And he said, so then that's when Tommy asked me, he says, "Okay, tell me what your guess is." And I said, "Because similar to Nick Fury, I know a lot of stuff." He was like, "That's it, exactly."
That's what I was thinking. Like I was like Nick Fury, Chris Fury, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I took the name, ran with it, and it's been going train ever since. And people, hence Chris Fury, the man on the wall. And people used to ask, "What's the man on the wall thing?" And I was like, "It's a Nick Fury reference."
Mm-hmm.
Where he was considered the man on the wall, like he was on the blue side of the moon with the Watcher, and he was the man on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew stuff because guess what? The Watcher sees all.
Mm-hmm.
So and Nick
Right?
Fury
Just like
has
a
all.
fly on a wall. Like when they say,
Yeah,
oh, if I could be a fly on a wall, to just,
right.
and then in addition to like with spies and with all like, especially with his organization, it's
Yeah,
like you
like
think
even
of
if you're
like,
not on his team, he knows about
right,
you. So
yes,
like
he knows
so
you exist,
right.
literally.
Like so when the cards is all on the table, you're like, you know what? I think I know a guy or a girl. I think I know someone who can handle this job. Let me touch base with them. So it stuck. And I loved it. And I just started rocking it out. And so now people, and it's amazing how many people have short attention spans. Oh, but
Yeah.
I call it because I say, look, and I'll use the Marvels. Perfect
Mhm.
example. I'm an MCU fan. Not
Same.
all of them are hits, and I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm going to see them. And this is with any movie. This isn't just MCU. This is with any film.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter the genre. Whatever film. I'm going to go see it
Hmm.
and then make my own judgment. I'm not going to
Yes.
trash it. And the Marvels is one of these films
Hmm.
where one, it's a female-led film.
Yes.
Two, these are three powerful women, and they all have different attributes, and they all kick ass.
Literally.
And people were like, "Oh, I don't want to see it." Why don't you want to see
Why
it? Well,
not?
I'm not into Captain Marvel. Okay, that's fine. Won't charge you there. But if you say I didn't want to see it because I think she's stupid, it looks stupid, did you go see it?
They don't want to see it because it's women. And
Yeah.
like there's been some op-ed pieces on that because I know we're
Mm,
talking about your origin story, but when you said Marvel and like, when we emailed and we talked about what we were talking about, I am a diehard Marvel fan. Like you said, like it doesn't matter if everybody said it sucks. I've got to watch it for myself.
right.
I grew up on the X-Men cartoons. I've read the comics. The Marvel universe it means something to
Yeah.
me.
It's
So
a passion project.
it's a
So it's
passion project. And
so
they can't just discredit it because there's so many. Marvel is so amazing in that even the women of the universe are are like very heavy hitters, like their franchises
Yeah,
can stand alone. I'm gonna
exactly.
shade Marvel because we still never got our Storm when they were doing X-Men Origins and they just gave us Wolverine, and they had that little
Mm,
teaser of Baby Storm, but I'm gonna
yeah,
forgive them because I'm hoping by 2050 we at least get a Storm. But
I, I, I'm trusting in them to get this right, and I'm glad they're not rushing anything, And Mr. Lively, aka Ryan Reynolds,
yes,
I trust in you to make sure the stuff is fixed correctly, unless you somehow mess up the universe, which leads to Secret Wars, but that's another thing.
right?
Um, so when I see stuff like this, when I see these characters, and we did a whole review on the movie and everything else, we said, go see this movie. This is fun.
Mhm.
This is an absolute fun. It's a fun fest. These women kick ass. It's just that people love Miss Marvel. They absolutely love Iman Vellani, from the
Good.
television show and from the movie,
Yes.
because she's us.
Yes.
She's us. Like, she's an actual hardcore fan. Like, when she's on the red carpet for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and she says, "Oh no, that's Spider-Man from Earth 19999." I'm like, she knows what he's talking about. Shut up.
Right. Because some of these directors that are coming out for other film franchises, they haven't even looked at the source material. And it's
Right.
like, how are you writing this? How are you directing? And you're just gonna freeball it. And it's like, no, like even case in point of like when you have fans and people who love the material that are creating the films, John Favreau. Love when he's like what he's done with the whole franchise when he was doing Iron Man and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I love even with which film was that? Oh goodness, I forgot. It was one of the X-Men movies, I want to say. And at that time, and this is showing how old I am, I'm an elder millennial. But there was a time, and I'm sure you remember too, I'm assuming your age, but remember when Juggernaut was like the thing all over YouTube, and someone was doing these dubs over like the old X-Men cartoons, and he's like, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yep. Yep.
They
Yep.
when he said that in the movie, everyone lost their bananas. Like it was like you could hear the whole crowd just go, yeah, like,
And it's stuck. It's
and
stuck.
it's not
That
because
movie
that's
was
when
just on. That
the
movie was just
reality
on.
became, and cross, like you need that. Like that's what has to happen, like when people are creating these stories, because they have to realize we grew up with it. We're sharing it with our people who have kids, we're sharing it with their kids. My older brother shared his comic books with me. So it went from comics to cartoons to movies so it's just
Mm,
like you have to have some sort of integrity to the source material. And of
right.
course, I love Stan Lee. I'm not just a fan of Marvel, I'm a fan of Stan Lee, RIP. Like a
Him and Jack
genius.
Kirby, for me, are like the godfathers of the Marvel universe.
Yes.
Despite whatever differences they had, I know they hashed it out. They actually hashed out their differences,
Yeah.
and it was done, but it's the nature of the business. Things can be
Right.
construed different ways, whatever. But whenever something happens, I always look at these two. I said, we wouldn't be here without these two.
Right.
We wouldn't be here. Captain America wouldn't be a thing without Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. you
Yes.
know, X-Men wouldn't be here without Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Yes.
A lot of these people, you know, despite him, the way he draw our little feet, we wouldn't have Rob Liefeld's Deadpool. We wouldn't have Deadpool without Rob Liefeld.
Right.
So a lot of these people, I can appreciate what they've put into the work because it goes on and expands on. So they have an influence on your readers.
Yes.
And when as me coming up reading these books, I remember a lot of these stories. I remember a lot of their moral compasses and how they've changed over time, and why they keep giving Peter Parker the bad end of the stick. I have no clue. And it's like, but it shows his resilience, and as a black person, who
Yeah.
knows about resilience more than us?
Right. I think that's why so many more out of the entire Spider-Man, like out of the entire Marvel, sorry, franchise, a lot of Black people, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and now Miles resonates with them because it's that like that commonality of being a regular person and then being thrust with like all these responsibilities, the connection with family and like it's just it's the same reason why anime resonates with us, and why,
Yeah.
or even like when I was growing up, Kung Fu Matinee and Bruce Lee, there's something about these stories that speaks to us and our journey that, we can identify with and relate to.
Yeah. And I think by me coming into this space of not just podcasting, but web shows,
Yeah.
it that's the origin for me. It's like I'm kind of building my own origin story
Yeah.
and not realizing it. I'm just talking about what I love. I'm just speaking the gospel. And I'm just, the tagline for Blerd's Eye View is to educate, entertain, and encourage. And we
Mm-hmm.
do that every show. We are teaching you something
Mm-hmm.
that you might not have known before, whether it's about the guest, whether it's about a certain subject dealing with a certain comic book character,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. You're obviously getting entertained. And we encourage people to go after those dreams, because one
Yes.
thing I consistently would hear, even as I was starting my own show, I've been wanting to do it. I don't know how to do it. And I said, just do it,
Right.
or just get up and do that thing. Because when you keep thinking about it, it's going to pass you by and you're going to be questioning what if, what happened, what, and you better off. I would rather you try and fumble the ball
Right.
than not do it at all and have something that people need to see, people need to hear, people need to talk about. you
Mm-hmm.
know um it's a video I got to make to for probably over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
because as you know, the X-Men 97 just had to drop the new trailer. We talked about it, we did our reaction video and everything, and today I'm seeing people talking about uh Disney did it again, X-Men is woke, and I'm like, you can't be a fan of the X-Men
Yeah.
if you don't understand the concept of the X-Men.
The X-Men is the most intersectional, inclusive band of mutants.
Like, we know what this is like. Literally, we know what it's like to be ostracized. We know
Right?
what it's like to be indifferent. We know what it's like to be bullied. We know what it's like to not be seen. We know what it's like to be feared for no apparent reason.
Right.
People of color have that interaction all the time.
Mhm.
And so when I see people, oh, it's going woke, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, do y'all even know what the term means? Because they've
Literally.
always been woke. What are you talking about?
You know what? And I hate how woke got appropriated to be part of this like conservative, anti inclusivity, anti progressive banter, like, because it's just like using woke to, it's just like when we first, as Black people, first started using woke, it's like the awareness of waking up and coming out of like a colonized mindset, out of
Yes.
changing the way we see ourselves and how we see our communities, how we see our peers, how we see our brothers and sisters, and how we started to question and pick those things apart, like that institutionalized racism,
Yeah.
colorism, all those things. So that's what woke meant for us was, hey, like, better. Like, here's the information. You can't know better, so do better.
Yeah.
And we were changing from, kind of the victim mindset and becoming more involved in what we can do, telling our own stories,
Hmm.
realizing we are the table and
You're
making
right.
the table and saying, and stop inviting people to the barbecue, that
Oh,
kind of, because
oh,
I like
there's
that
a
was the
gospel
whole,
being preached right now.
because that was like part of that woke movement 2016, 2017. It was like, hey, we ain't inviting nobody. I saw it all over Twitter. Nobody else is getting these
We got to put a
invites
stop.
to the
Y'all got to
barbecue.
stop. You
And
got to
to be
stop.
honest, we stopped with Michael Rappaport. I used to be big on Twitter because like he almost had a lifelong, and I forgot
Almost a
what
damn near a
comment,
lifelong invite,
a
almost.
lifelong invite. And I
And
was
then
like,
all
no,
of a
you
sudden, I seen a
remember,
shift. I'm like,
right?
it was a shift, and I'm like,
He started saying some things, and we was like, the homie ain't the homie no more.
right.
And I started remembering, I was like, well, he did play Remy.
Okay.
The OG school pew pew guy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. In that was it Spike Lee movie? Yeah.
yeah, higher
Higher learning.
learning.
Higher learning. When
Poor
they
little Tyra
I
Banks.
remember seeing
See?
that, and I'm just like,
Right.
You
Right. You got to give him the side eye. And it's like, give me
I
that
don't know. You
plate
got
back.
you looked a little too comfortable.
Really, he done got way
Cube,
too comfortable.
Cube, Buster, Cube, get him. I don't
Exactly.
say.
You know, for sure. Like, we got to be like, hey, we might have to tell him we at one park and go to another place because
Yeah,
he's showing up and it's like,
you lost
who
all your
invited this
privileges.
guy?
You can't even get the plate brought out to you anymore.
Nah, like literally, like we gonna send you home with a plate. Go around to the back. But no. So, that's where woke, was kind of like its origin story. And then now to hear it being used for like everything that they don't like. Like I
Yeah,
hated,
they said
it's
about the
just a
Marvels.
joke, you
Yeah, they
know?
said it. They said it about the Marvels. It was like, oh, they've gone woke again. I'm like, you mean about characters that's been around since the 70s?
Literally. Even before that,
Like, yeah,
some
yeah,
of them.
like, yeah, like, I'm sorry, Storm's been around since the 60s. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
So what is this going? What are you
Where you
confused about?
going
What's
with
your matter?
this?
Yeah.
And these plot lines have been around since the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
Like Black Panther for sure was written during that time. And even though Stanley kind of tries to say he didn't write it because of the Black Panther movement, it's like,
it
look
was
what
just happy accident. It literally, it's just one of them things. It was a happy accident in the same year.
um,
Happy accident,
a
and I'll
happy
take it.
accident, we all grew up
Like
with Rob Ross
it
too.
can't.
It's
Yeah,
a
it
happy
was.
little accident.
He did it 3 months prior to the actual introduction of the Black Panther Party. Happy
you know,
accident.
coincidentally,
Yeah,
conveniently.
let's roll with it, and
Exactly.
shout out to Don McGregor, because Don
Yes.
McGregor, who wrote it, I loved his work when he was writing Black Panther. He's the one that introduced Black Panther fighting the Klan, and the people were telling you can't do that, and he was like, "Oh, watch me," and
Exactly. Why not?
you know, so like there's still a few allies
Yeah.
and that still stand up to Tony Isabella, who did who's a creator of Black Lightning. A lot of the story, he's very much staunch supporter of Black lives.
Yeah.
He's very much staunch supporter of Black lives, and he says that he's like, I don't like what they did to the character. I hate that they did the Vulcan spit on
Yeah.
the superhero cartoons, but the way he's seen him in the live action show, he said, who, by the way, he was a judge on the show in one season. Um, he said, this is what I wrote Black Panther for:
Yeah.
to fight the injustices in his community, to
Yeah.
uplift the people in his community, to show them that there could be another way, that you don't always have to be the trauma character.
Yes.
Here was a character who had two daughters, and he was raising them, and he was an Olympic athlete himself,
Mhm.
and he's training them, and even in the show it shows that Black Lightning is he's was a teacher at the school, and then I think he later
Right.
became the principal.
Principal. Yeah, I was gonna
and
say. Yeah.
people like Robert Townsend was in the
Mhm.
show, and
Robert
showing that,
Townsend as a director, for me growing up, like even him, like
yeah,
this is
they
historical.
yeah, and you're seeing these elements, these parallels between the real life and the
Yes.
show, and you're saying they're addressing certain things. And
Yes.
we know who you are that's not ready for it.
Right.
But guess what? We didn't ask you to be ready for it,
Yeah.
because it's here and you have to see this. So my job on Blerd's Eye View is to educate those masses,
Yes.
whether it be our own people, whether it be people on the other side, to
Mhm.
say, this is why these characters exist. This is
Yeah.
why you have all these Black indie creatives coming through and talking about new stories, new characters. Because how many times? And don't get me wrong, like I said, love Marvel, but how many times can you restart issues of certain legacy characters?
Right.
What others can you touch the stories?
Yeah.
Whether it's Marvel or DC or
Yeah.
Image,
Yeah.
tell
Yes.
the stories. Tell the stories that need to be relevant to that time.
Yes.
Miles Morales is relevant to this time.
He very much is.
Black Panther is relevant to our culture.
Yes.
Captain America is relevant to the history of this country. People say, well, why
Yes.
Captain America? I said, because he literally stands on the moral compass and ground that the
Yes, he
country
does.
should be. And he's even been known to say, look the government in the eye and said, you know what? Not today.
Right.
Not today. Like,
Right.
and fight back, because we as a people united, we all are dealing with the same things.
Yeah.
We're people are struggling. Taxes is getting higher, rent is getting higher, mortgages is getting higher, no one's pay is getting higher.
Right.
Does anyone else see a problem with this? Like, there's no reason why I'm going to Walmart and I'm like, why is the cheap stuff even going up higher? What is
Right.
happening?
Right.
So we see a lot of these instances and no one says anything. And when I read about these characters and they take these moves, they take these methods, and to that conservative side, yeah, it's going to look extreme. Why? Because it's making you uncomfortable.
And it's forcing them to come to grips with a reality outside of the bubble that they like to feel safe in, their little safe space. Because
Right.
the thing I feel like what I've noticed is equality and equity are very uncomfortable for them to see that shift of where they are
Mm,
centered and that their viewpoint is accepted as the norm. And I feel
right.
like that's what we look to fantasy and sci-fi for, is like in a world where anything could happen and anything could be, and we still are dealing with these issues,
Yeah.
you know?
So
And
when I
that's
hear about that, yeah,
yeah, and it's wild because I'm really excited, like you said, when you started talking about people writing the news stories right now. This is a great time to write about it because, remember a couple of years back, about what, 10, 15 years ago, with all those dystopias, and it's like we're living in this time now where
we are
every day
so close.
you
We
wake
are
up and it's
so
like, I
close.
can't believe this is happening.
Right.
It's this
Like,
real life.
we're dealing with, in case in point, we are dealing with a world where we're getting Sam Wilson as Captain America.
Mhm.
And just several years ago, Sam Wilson became Captain America.
Right.
And I said, and even in the comics, they addressed it, and they would say people would get onto the quote unquote Fox News like stations that they would have in the comics,
Right.
and they said, "That's not my Captain America." I know what you're saying. When Sam Wilson has to go back to Philly where he's from, and like, because he's a social worker by, basically his 9 to 5 was, he was a social worker, so dealing with the community and saying, dealing with stuff in the community and dealing with these issues, like, how can I uplift my community and still stand on the moral high ground of carrying the moniker of Captain America, which is supposed to unite everyone,
The country.
and so I'm like, you don't think we about to see that in this movie? You don't think we about to see people saying, I'm not going to see that because that's not my Captain America? You're literally playing out the comic.
Yeah.
So you can't call
Literally thought
yourself,
bubble.
yeah, it's like you cannot. So there's people out there who I watch and listen, not so much listen to, but I watch, because when you say you call yourself a fan
Mhm.
of characters like Captain America, fans of the X-Men, fans of Black Panther, and you see that, oh, I don't like what's happening in this country, and shouldn't all lives matter, you miss the entire point. You
And I
miss the
had
entire
a
point.
very good answer to that because I had someone ask me that years ago, shouldn't all lives matter? And I said, you know, does anyone ever go to a conference for breast cancer or brain cancer or lung cancer and say, all cancers matter? It's very insensitive. Like, we know
Right,
cancer sucks. We want all cancer to be eradicated and find a
right.
cure because it's horrible. But you're not, when you're at during, October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, nobody jumps up there and says all cancers matter. My mom had da 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 da,
Yeah,
you
right,
know?
right. And I think
Like,
that's why I say people have short attention spans.
short attention spans, because
They
all
say,
lives didn't matter until we started saying our lives
right.
matter.
When you say, "Oh, I like the X-Men. I love the X-Men. I read the books." Okay. Now, here we are, 2024. Cannot say, "I don't like how the X-Men are acting." How are they acting?
Right.
Charles Xavier and Magneto, Eric Lischner, are
Mm-hmm.
literally Malcolm and Martin,
Yeah.
and the X-Men represents the people of color, people
I
who
think
are,
that's a very, very good
yeah,
analogy,
people
euphemism.
people are people of color, people of different backgrounds, religions, their sex identities. That's the X-Men.
Abilities,
Uh,
disabled,
yeah, all of
differently
it.
abled. Yes.
All literally was watching the 97 version the other day, and it was the second episode, and the FOH, the people who are against the mutants, and I the way he was
Yeah.
saying mutants, I'm like, you saying mutant with a hard M. And
Right.
I kind of feel that. I
You
felt it
little,
then,
little
and I
stress
feel it
on there.
now. And they got Jubilee, and the first thing she says is like, well, what did we do to you? And he was like, you were born. And I'm like, oh,
Right. Because I
years later
this
is
whole
still
time we've been
relevant.
talking, yes, I kept thinking about Jubilee, and I was like,